What's up, everyone? New Celtics Beat coming at you, and all things good in the world of Boston sports. And we've got a very special show here for you as we get closer to Thanksgiving. Evan Valenti's here. I'm Adam Kauffman. You're used to us, a special guest, and you see him already if you're watching the video. He's a celebrated musician, an actor, and philanthropist. But I think he would agree, above all of that, he's one of us. He's a Bostonian. He's a Boston sports fan. Donnie Wahlberg. How are you, man? Good to see you.
I'm good. A little rough night last night out here in Chicago, but other than that, all is well.
I was going to ask you because you were at that game, you and your wife, Jenny, and you've been frequenting the Garden this year as well. Whenever you get a moment away from New Kid stuff or Blue Blood stuff, you're kind of you're like a season ticket holder now, except you go on the road too.
It's better. Honestly, road games just. Specifically with this group of players, since I used to travel, to road games all the time before the big three, the second coming of the big three, during the 18-win season, I was going to road games everywhere. But, there's something about this group of players makes it a lot more fun to go on the road. Even though last night was not a good game, we shot terrible, we rebounded terrible, but they just don't give up. And there's something about since Jalen was a rookie, something about this team where they're just not fazed by being behind on the road. They'd come back. And even if they don't win on the road, typically, I know I'm going to have a great experience because they're going to fight till the end. And even if they really start digging in, my dog's going crazy, start digging in the fourth quarter, I know it's going to make it worth the experience. But yeah, road games are fun. It's fun being outnumbered by the fans in the enemy buildings, and it's a good time.
Well, we'll get to a lot of the stuff going on with this team. Maybe mix in just because Donnie's here, and it's not just the Celtics.
Get my dog while you're talking.
Keep going. By all means. We'll talk about some of the other Boston sports stuff going on too. Last time Donnie came on the show a couple years ago, by the way, I think we went for 2 hours. We won't do that to him. Today we'll
never shut up.
Yeah, well, both of us. I think we both kind of ramble a little bit. That's okay. You posted too yesterday your Monday motivation video on Twitter, Instagram. It was you going up for the 360 dunk on the mini hoop there, showing the world that you're not perfect. None of us are. And, the dunk doesn't go through. But was that just because you were excited about coming on this podcast to talk hoops?
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually
that's what it was.
I filmed it about 2 years ago, actually.
No, I mean the repost, the throwback, bringing it back.
We were I don't know why I posted it, honestly. I just I started messing around with the voice to text thing on the Instagram reel, and when I wrote "Let's go" and the voice tried to replicate it, it was so funny. I said I have to post this right now. But yeah, Grant Williams actually came over to me at courtside last night and was like, I saw your attempted dunk. That was awful. I blamed it on my Blue Bloods props, but I have to tell the truth. There was a gun on my hip. It was fake. It's like a plastic. I wouldn't be trying to do a 360 dunk with a real gun on my hip. It was fake, of course. So yeah, I have no excuses other than it made for a good Instagram reel.
Evan and I were talking about this before the show, and I think you and I talked about it last time that you were on too. But and Steve Buckley's written about it in the Wicked Good Year book. Growing up in Dorchester and going to games and sneaking into the Garden a lot of the time versus that's where you were then, obviously as a kid, versus where you are now and where you've been for decades. Being able to go to all these games and sit courtside and know the players on a personal level, you could just reach out to Jalen or Jason or Grant or whoever. They know you as well. Is it still kind of a pinch yourself sort of thing, or does it, you just kind of get used to it over time?
Well, I would say I get used to it, but it's definitely surreal at the same time. But I more important is I just never take a second of it for granted. To me, it's I have a video that I haven't posted because I don't want people in Boston to get mad at me, but it's literally halfway through the third quarter of a game, and I'm in the front row with my son, and I panned across the front row. Every chair was empty because everyone was still back in the club, chatting and having a drink and stuff. That's mind-boggling to me. And I say that with all due respect to all the courtside season ticket holders and the owners, everyone who sits there. I know, it's hard to get out of the back area once you go back there, but that's I don't want to miss. I don't want to miss a second of any of this. I think I'm frozen here, but I'll keep talking because I know you can hear me. Cut to some clips.
I know. Hopefully you're start moving again. We do hear you though. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I can't even believe it that I'm able to get into a game as consistently as I do, and B, that I'm sitting in the front row. Forget the fact that, I'm able to, chat with the players and stuff like that. Like, that's just a whole other thing, but I never take it for granted. I tell people, like, guys, if you go to a game with me, like, we're going the whole nine. Like, we're going pre-warm-ups, pre-national anthem, and we're leaving after the court is empty. Like, I want the full experience, of the game, because it's like, I worked my whole life to be able to do this. Like, I'm not showing up halfway through the first quarter. If you ever see me do that, there was a real reason for it. Like I got hit by a bus and had to pick myself up off the ground and still get to the game.
I feel like you're like inadvertently making sure that nothing with you don't get attached in any sort of Celtics way, in the same way that like Mark did with the Patriots with the Super Bowl. Like, there's no leaving early here. It's not happening.
We'll never live that down. He can never live that down. And it's a good example for everybody around. Like, just never leave the game, especially if Tom Brady's involved. You never know what's going to happen.
I'm surprised that Mark, and I'm saying this publicly, I'm surprised he doesn't get more shit for that decision.
He did for a while. I mean, it didn't calm down for a little while, but people,
that was like 5 years ago, wasn't it? 4 years. How long ago was that?
Long time.
It was longer than that now. Yeah, it was the Patriots Falcons Super Bowl in Houston.
So what year is that?
Yeah, so that might have been like 2017, 18, maybe January, February 2018. So yeah, just it feels like a lifetime ago, because that's how long Brady has been gone. But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna join this Zoom on my phone in a second if this doesn't work. We're in this fancy room with all this lighting and high tech stuff, and
I know it looks good.
We can't get a Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah, I was commenting. The vibe is excellent. It feels like there's just a lot of. It just feels like a good place to like relax and just chill for a little bit. I don't know if it's the lighting or the leather everywhere. I'm not quite sure, but it's a really solid room there.
You may have to take us up to the home office where you got all the gear anyway.
I might. Well, let's keep talking, and I'll check the link on my phone, and maybe we'll do both.
Well, I've been monopolizing this thing. I'll let Evan ask you a question.
Well, it's just, I do want to get into last night a little bit. We're coming off the Celtics' first loss in 10 tries here, and it was, a little frustrating. I agree with Donnie at the end of the game that, they at least unlocked a little bit in terms of trying to, at least attack the rim a little bit differently. Like last night, my biggest frustration was just settling for too many threes. Like, I know they're open, and I know Scal's been making a big deal of this, and listen to opposing broadcasts. They all talk about how they can't keep making these forever, and they have. They've just been shooting lights out for the first, 15, 16, 17 games of the season. But last night was one of those nights where their shots like weren't falling. And Adam, I don't know if you caught this. Donnie was at the game. I'm not sure if he had been back to his seats yet. But NBC Sports Boston in the middle of halftime took a live feed of the guys warming up for the second half. And there were a lot of jump shots not going in last night. I mean, they, for some reason, decided to put that up there and let everybody kind of marinate on everybody just clanking jump shots off there. But it should have been like at least a little bit of a change in philosophy at that point, just because it was a rough shooting effort. And I was talking to a couple of people last night about this, but it's just one of those games where they came out flat. The energy clearly wasn't there. Maybe they're looking forward to Luka and going back home. I'm not quite sure what it was, but it took till the fourth quarter until people started attacking the basket. Malcolm Brogdon did a great job trying to get guys in motion for the most part. But I just feel like last night, maybe just a lack of adjustments, and maybe inserting Pritchard, at least something that's worked out the past couple of games where they haven't had their full, rotation of guards between Smart and Brogdon and White and Pritchard. They've inserted him, and he's brought a lot of energy. So, I mean, it's one loss. They've only lost just a few times, but at the same time, Donnie, I feel like I'm with you. They fought back in that game. They hung around. They just couldn't, quite close the gap to a reasonable amount. And I'm just curious as to why Mazzulla didn't try something a little different. Like Stevens had a great expression. I love when he said it. He used to say it all the time. Sometimes you got to shake the snow globe and change things up. I felt like last night Pritchard could have maybe throw him in that game and bring some life to the floor, because it felt like for the most part they were sleepwalking last night.
I got to mention real quick before Donnie goes that I hope, I don't want any of it to go away in post-production. I hope everyone got to see all of that with Donnie reconnecting on his phone, the headshot for Denny in the other window. I hope all of that stays with the podcast.
Ellington Aldo the fourth right here as his handle here. This is fantastic.
This is it, man. You got a full production. We got some feedback, his voice, but I did still heard the entire question.
Yeah.
And commentary. So it felt like one of those games right out of the gate, where just nobody was really shooting well last night. I do think JT needed to touch the ball more. There's a lot of times, the ball would swing and kind of stop with somebody. It wouldn't get back to him, and he probably would have got a decent look. And I say this like in a non-critical way. I'm not criticizing the players, but they all have strengths from three. Al needs a little time to set. When Al's got the ball and it takes a second or two and he's open and, before he shoots, it's going in. When Al's rushing it, it's not going in, or a defender's running at him. Those ones are tougher for him to make. They're going to be less consistent. Marcus, when he gets the ball in the flow of the game, the ball's swinging, comes to him and he just fires it, or there's not a lot of time on the shot clock, he'll make those. He'll just drain those all day. The ones that are tougher for him seem to just, JB, when he elevates, he's going to make it. Tatum, I think, has a little more leeway. He'll sidestep, he'll backstep, he'll do all this different stuff, and he'll make those threes. But to your point, Evan, 2 points. One, when we played Cleveland in the Garden early this year, I don't remember if people remember, but it was like Swiss cheese for both teams, and in our defense, we don't have Rob back there patrolling the paint. So it's a whole different thing till he comes back. I'm surprised we haven't lost a few more games, to be honest with you. And I'm really proud of them for how tough they've been playing. They could have phoned in a lot of these games this early in the season. And it's a testament, I think, to the guys' resolve this year. It's a testament to Coach, Mazzulla. I think whatever he's connected with the guys, they're in. They're not waiting until January to start playing. They're playing now, and it's very exciting. And you can expect a game at the end of a road trip, like last night, could be problematic. Maybe the guys were tired. They've been fighting hard in a lot of these games, and they're undermanned. They're short players, and could Peyton have come in and made a difference last night? Very possible. I kept looking at my wife saying, man, we can't throw it in the ocean and we're still only down by 6.
Yeah.
Once we get hot, we're going to win. And just nobody got hot. JB got hot for a minute, but, it just didn't work out. As far as Coach, it's still early and, he's still, we're still learning about his approach and method to things. But I think, I just think he's so refreshing. I love when he talks. I love his interviews. He kind of lets the game go. He's like not rushing to call timeouts. Some people don't like that. I happen to like it. When we're
play through it.
Yeah, when we're a sinking ship, it's not comfortable to watch. But I think he just kind of. I think he's been around these guys and has a faith in them. That they do have this resolve. And again, last night's not the best example of it, but. I was in Milwaukee in the playoffs or just before the playoffs a few years. No, it was in the playoffs when they beat Milwaukee in 7 in Bledsoe year.
Oh, yeah. The Drew Bledsoe stuff.
Yeah. Where's Bledsoe?
That was the best.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. But I think it was game 4 in Milwaukee, and the Celtics were down like 24 and stormed back and took the lead. It was incredible. I mean, those games, those guys didn't have Kyrie, they didn't have Gordon that year, and they never give up. That's why I love this group of guys. They're great guys. B, they never give up. And, I understand Coach, sort of going with things last night. It's just, he probably knew they were struggling, said, I got to let them shoot their way out of this. Problem is we really didn't rebound our way out of it. And that's the problem. There was an awful call at the end of the game where, the center, Drummond.
Yeah. Drummond got the Celtics.
We were down 8. We got to stop. And Drummond got the offensive rebound, and they called a horrific foul on us. But, in truth, that foul never gets called if we get the rebound and don't let him get the offensive rebound. So it's, it is what it is. That we get that possession, we go down and get a 2 or 3. Now we're down 5 or 6. It's a whole nother game at that point, potentially.
You know what it felt like that game? I was just going to say, like,
sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, that Cleveland game earlier, It just, I was literally standing courtside in the Garden. I kept yelling, go to the hole, because nobody was defending when the Celtics went to the basket, and again, we were shorthanded that night. It's possible the guys were going to the hole a bunch, and I only knew that because I watched them keep going to the hole and score, right? So when they would settle for a 3, I would be like, no, keep going to the hole. But it's easy for me to say. I'm sitting in a chair watching these guys, with like an 8-man rotation, trying to keep going to the hole in the fourth quarter when, they probably were a little tired.
What it felt like watching much of that game with the poor shooting last night, like these are only in playgrounds. We've all played on them growing up or whatever. I'm sure there were plenty in Dorchester that were by me and Sharon, like these, those awful playgrounds with the double hoops that
double rim's the worst.
Yeah, the double rim, you have no chance of actually getting the ball through it. That's what it felt like last night. Just double rims on both sides. Anywhere the Celtics were shooting was a double rim. But those games, they're so infrequent. Obviously they don't happen, to this team, they barely happen. So how much, especially on the heels of what happened last year, going to the finals, finishing 2 wins shy, the fact that in the offseason, they improved the roster, bringing in Brogdon was huge. The emergence of Hauser, especially after the Gallinari injury, Tatum and Brown have taken their games to another level. To your point, we haven't even seen Rob yet. How much I know you're the poster of positivity, but even removing some level of that, how all in are you in terms of this team can win a championship? Tatum can be MVP, X number of, individual accolade, this, that. Like what? I mean, is this team ceiling what we all want to believe it is?
Well, I would say based on what we've seen so far, yes. I try not to be like in the prediction business like that. Adam, we talk a lot Patriots and stuff like that. And
yeah,
I'll make a prediction, but I also just kind of stay open because there's no telling how a season's going to unfold. Right. So, it's like, I'm happy the team got to 13-3. I can pinpoint 5 games we could have lost, and I can pinpoint 8 we would have lost last year, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think if all the pieces are in place, this team can beat anybody in a 7-game series. Absolutely. And the biggest threats to this team outside of Milwaukee seem to be off to really terrible starts, and they can bounce back. But, so far, things are lining up very well for this team outside of the injuries. If Rob comes back healthy, if Gallo can play, we got to mesh these guys to the rotation too. When Rob came back in the playoffs last year for the second round, we lost that opening game to Milwaukee, right? Because everyone's out of sync. We just learned how to play without him. Now we got to learn to play with him again. I say we because, I got the green blood. What do you want me to say? Yeah, but it's like we could have, you got to bring guys back in, and there's a whole adjustment period. I'm not a gambler, but the night when a key player comes back to a team off an injury, don't bet that team. Bet the other team.
Yeah.
They're they're out of sync. They're not used to playing with that guy, and they're just out of sorts. So there's a lot to figure out, but I think seeing how well Sam shoots, and I was told this, Brad Stevens told me this last year at a game. Me and my son Elijah were picking his brain about like, we got to make a move. We need some shooting. He was like, that's all we need is shooting. But he said, Sam Hauser is one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. I was like, great. Is he going to play? And I think Wyc told me that. Wyc Grousbeck said that to me. C. Paliuka said that to me. Like, they just kept saying, that guy can shoot, man. That guy can shoot. 8 minutes a night for him in the finals could have been a different story, only because that they were defending Jalen and Jason, if that ball swung to a guy who could just hit that automatic three, it's a whole different series, but maybe he can be that this year. He's definitely shown an amazing touch. And, I think if he's playing well, Pritchard's playing well, Gallo comes back and fits in, which I don't know if he's coming back. We'll see. And if Rob, is healthy and all goes well, yeah, this team could beat anyone. Right now, we're like an offensive.
He's not a gambler. I can't even get him to play fantasy sports with me. You know how many times I've tried? Yeah,
Kauffman, you try with everybody though. I feel like you're just like
don't minimize it.
I'm just saying you've tried. We're in this fantasy basketball league. You throw out I don't know how many different flyers to so many different people to be in this fantasy basketball league. Do you just bother people? Donnie, how many times has he bothered you about being in a fantasy league with him?
He doesn't. No, he might ask me a few times, but
all right, because you work for DraftKings, so I'm just like, is this part of like the gig? You have to be like involved in a million different things, or is this just like because you're crazy? So you're crazy. Okay,
yeah, a little bit.
I know fantasy's probably awesome. I know those who get into it. I just,
it's really a miserable experience when it doesn't go well for you. It's only great when it's going well, and then that's it. That's it. It's the draft, and then either your team rules and you feel a sense of empowerment, or your team's terrible and then you don't feel great about it for 6 months. It's awesome.
So it's like being a sports fan.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, to the nth degree, except you have a little money on it.
That's right.
Last one for me anyway, just in the interest of time, and I feel like I kind of know the answer to this. Just
only, and we're not cutting this short. We're here. We're going to talk. We can talk after, Adam. I'll call you at 3:00 after this. Well, let's keep going.
Enough. All right. Well, here, what I want to know is you being such a passionate sports fan that you are and have been your entire life. I'm wondering, around everything you've got going on, sort of what role sports plays in that. Like, trying to keep up with the Celtics run to the finals when you're on tour last year, keeping up with what the Celtics are doing when you're, doing the New Kids cruise on, if you're I don't know if you shoot Blue Bloods on Sundays, but Sundays during Patriots games, like how do you work around the professional, the work that obviously you care so deeply about around such a passionate fandom that you also have?
I think it's, I would say it's no different than any other sports fan, specifically any other Boston sports fan. I mean, it's, if you dropped us in the middle of the ocean, on a raft with no phone or no Wi-Fi or nothing, as soon as we get rescued, we're going to ask if our team won, whatever the big team contending that year was. It's like the first thing you're going to say when we get rescued from a deserted island is, did the Pats win? It is what it is. So for me, I'm just always checking in, always, I get my Blue Blood schedule for an episode and I'm like, oh, wow, I got a Friday off. Celtics might be home. Let me see. And I'm like, all right, I'm going. I'm going to the game. They're playing an early game Sunday. I'll just stay in Boston and go to both. And then I'll go back to New York and work at 5 a.m. Monday and I'll be tired, whatever. I pick and choose when I can go to games. But like, as I said, I love going to road games. Like I'm only 3 hours from Indianapolis. I can go to see the Celtics Pacers. I'm an hour and a half from Milwaukee. I can go see those Celtics Bucks games anytime. So it's actually easier to go to see the Bucks from where I live than to drive to Chicago. The traffic is so bad, you know, the Celtics Bulls. So for me, I'm just always looking, you know, for opportunities to go, to watch, to support. I'm always checking box scores. I'll sit there, you know, with the Gamecast on ESPN, like, you know, watching the little basketball go up in the air.
Oh yeah, it is. That's how diehard it gets, though.
May as well be an old Nintendo graphic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was at my son's. He was in the band in high school, and you know they're doing this big presentation and playing all these Beethoven songs and stuff. And I'm literally like watching a playoff game on my phone, just the tracker, not the actual game. And, you know, it's like, in my mind, I'm like, well, I shouldn't be doing this at my son's performance. But at the same time, he's going to want to know as soon as
he understands.
I get down to that stage after to congratulate him, he's going to go, did we come back from the 21-point deficit? You know, like, it's just the way we're raised, you know, in Boston. Like we, you know, and we all blame ourselves too. You know, when you're talking about being on tour, I was on tour for most of the playoffs. I think I got to 3 games, and the only other game I could have gone to is Game 5 in Golden State. And I couldn't, I think we were like in the East Coast. I couldn't fly all the way to Golden State and back for my concert the next day. It just was too much. But that was like devastating, but at the same time it's a roller coaster because it was devastating. I couldn't go, but at the same time it's like when they'd win I'd be like, oh shit, I should have been there. And then when they lose I'd be like, oh thank God I didn't travel, you know. And then if I go to a game and they lose, I'm like, I shouldn't have came, it's my fault, they lost. You know, it's like
I vaguely remember you saying to me, either you said to me or you tweeted or both, I don't know, something about like you'd be on tour and like you'd be late taking the stage to start the show because, you know, a game went into overtime or something like that. Watch, you know, having to watch these things. It's like, so for all the concert goers, all the blockheads out there that are thinking like, man, when are they coming on stage? What's going on? Well,
hey, no,
there's a game on. There's a game on.
Sorry, guys, we're watching the last quarter. You know, we'll tweet like when the Bruins were in the Stanley Cup both times against the Blackhawks and against the Canucks. Oh, we had a TV under the state and the Blues. But the Blues, for whatever reason, it timed out well. Where we were in the country, we could see the final period before we had to go on stage. So that just timed out for us well. And same with the finals this year. It just, we were on the West Coast when the Celtics were in Boston. So we were like, the game would end and we still had 20 minutes to go on stage. But we usually have a TV under the stage. So when we go to change clothes in between sets, like we're like watching the game. Like, you know, it's like, Tim Thomas got a shutout going, oh my God, everyone's crazy and stuff.
Hell yeah. Great. Love it. Got to find ways. I just have I want to go back to everybody was talking about Hauser last season. Like we don't have, Adam and I don't have access to this kind of like information, you know, schmoozing with Brad Stevens or Wyc or whatever. You got anything for like this season? Like is there somebody on the shelf that everybody's talking about that we need to be aware of? Or is there something that, you know, that there's a theme going on with the team this year that we're not like privy to? Because again, the big thing this year was Hauser. Yeah. Everybody knew Hauser was going to be a big deal, except for like people that like me and Adam, who were just like, Hauser was doing well in the G League, but obviously didn't get much time with the NBA club. And now he's shooting 40% from 3-point range. Is there something, you know, on the periphery here that you've heard, you know, being courtside or if in the conversations with Brad or Wyc or Joe or whatever you've been able to kind of piece together here? You want to know
when JD Davison's getting called up?
Yeah, exactly. Like, is there JD Davison hype I need to be aware of? Like, because that's my guy. I love that guy. Don't pull this and make it a clickbait, please. I'll do my best.
No, never.
Man,
wouldn't do that.
I went to in Boston. He was just, man, he's like, he just at a different speed than the rest of the guys on the court when he got out there. I mean, he was just, and it's like, it's fun. It's when you see a guy who moves with that speed and plays with that energy and just pace, that's just not on the same realm as the guys that are currently on the floor with him. It's like, I remember I went to the Forum years and years ago, and Kobe was a rookie, and I saw him come out, and it was like with Nick Van Exel and Shaq and Eddie Jones, and Dale Curry was the coach of the Lakers then.
Yeah.
Man, that guy Kobe Bryant he just moves at a different pace than everyone. You know, he didn't play great that night, but you could just see like this pace. It was like, whoa. And what does that mean? It just means there's a gear that they have that a lot of other players don't have. And if the game comes together, watch out for him. Just, that's all I'm saying. Watch out for him. He could be a steal, a second round steal if things align for him. As far as any secrets or tips, I really don't know. I sat with Wyc at the game about a week ago, and I don't ask a lot of questions like that. Like, I don't see that as my opportunity to like get inside access. You know, like I thought for a moment of saying like, how serious was all this KD talk, you know, but he's not here. So I know how serious it was not, you know, if it was that serious, he'd probably be here. Right. So to me, it just, the question's already answered. And I know that from experience, because when all the KG talk was going around in 2008 or before the 2008 season, you know, Wyc, the word was that Wyc couldn't let go of possibly getting KG, even though we almost got him once and it fell apart. And then we got Ray and it came back to life. And they wanted him and they got him. Right. So in my mind, I just know from experience that, you know, when the Celtics ownership really wants something to happen like that, it'll happen. Right. So when everyone was saying all these rumors, you know, everyone of course calls me like, are they really going to trade Jalen? I was like, I don't think so, man, because it would have happened. You know, it would have happened. Like, it's not, you know, whether they were really going to do it if it happened, because it would have happened. You know, I think if they were that high on KD coming to Boston, he'd be playing for the Celtics right now. Now, maybe the Nets wanted outrageous things in return, yada, yada. I don't know. Sure. But I think if they were hung up on it, you know, so I don't know any other secret thing. I think my sense is they love the roster. They wish Gallo was playing. But I think, you know, the blessing in disguise is it's created minutes for Sam, right? Yep. So we could see how Luke Cornett's even getting minutes because Rob's out, and he's had some great performances, right? So these injuries are troublesome if the guys don't make it back, but they're also a blessing because other guys are getting minutes, and we're going to need them to have had that experience, right? So, you know, Sam might have got that time in the finals last year if he had had more minutes during the regular season. Well, he's getting them now. So you won't be surprised if he comes in, you know, game 4 of the Eastern Finals and like drops 5 threes in a row. We're not going to be surprised. You know, Pritchard's minutes have been inconsistent, but we're not going to be surprised to see him come in and, you know, turn the Garden upside down. You know, it just, you know, I think it's all, I think that they feel like they put a great roster together. I'm sure there'll be a trade deadline situation, some veteran experience or depth, you know, depending if the roster stays healthy. But I think the team feels really good. I think all the inside scoop is they believe they have a championship team put together. And if all the pieces are there, it would be a disappointment, I think, to everyone around the team if they didn't win the championship this year.
So 2 things. Megan is our production assistant. Megan, when you're cutting the show and clips and all that, Donnie Wahlberg says JD Davison's the next Kobe Bryant. You can obviously
right.
Yeah, that's very, very important. Second to that, just like dovetailing off of what you're talking about, because I think we all expect there to be some sort of a move, a minor move, not a KD level move, but they have these TPs that are still available that expire midseason also. Is there a guy around the league, and I'm putting you on the spot, it's not like I fed you questions for this, but is there a guy that you really like that's on another team that like you'll watch him, you'll think, man, he'd be a great Celtic. Like he would be such a good, effective pickup for this team?
Malcolm Brogdon. We got him already with us. He's a great pickup. He's just great. I mean, he's just I think a perfect piece to the puzzle. In terms of anyone else, I honestly, I think a lot of Celtics fans would possibly agree with me. I think we got them. I think Gallo was someone people thought would be great. I think Brogdon was someone we thought would fit in Boston. I think those two guys coming in, that's kind of huge. It's kind of a big deal, looking around, I'm not sure, I think a guy like, he's probably not gettable now, but like Montrezl Harrell would have been interesting to see. He just, my son and I have been fans of his since, he was with the Clippers, right? He hustles, hustlers, guys that hustle and bang and aren't afraid to mix it up. Everyone loves them if you're from Boston, right? We love guys that, aren't afraid to mix it up. But, Grant kind of does similar things. Grant is like one of the best 3-point shooters in history, right? He started for like 20 something, and now he's like, he's money.
Yeah, 40,
it's
up to 40%.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I would ask you guys, if there's someone you guys or people have been talking about up there. But for me, I'm not really sure.
Where the rumors out there right now? It's like Justice Winslow, that type of thing.
And Justice is fine. Yeah. Justice is a great defensive player, moves the ball. It kind of fits what their kind of vibe. Not a great shooter, but they've taken on those challenges before and made guys out of that. But I just don't know if you trade for someone, where are the minutes coming from? Because this pretty, as Donnie said, this roster's pretty set. Like they're
got a pretty good rotation going.
Like even like Cornette has given them really valuable minutes off the bench. And I didn't think we spent how long did we spend this summer talking about the third, fourth big? Like that's where their hole is. And all of a sudden,
more hours than I thought I had in my life.
Way too many shows dedicated to that. And Cornette's been fine. They have Kevin Gelly down in the G League. He's doing fine. One of those two guys will probably be okay for the season. It's just more about managing Al and Rob. So when they get to April and May, those two guys are fresh. So it's like there's just not a lot of space. Like where are the minutes? Like Pritchard, good player, familiar with all of their sets and everything. Can't get off the bench because there's too many guys in front. So I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah,
they have the ammo. That's all.
It's true. I think when playoffs come around, though, depth is really the key.
Injuries are going to happen.
Yes, and even outside of injuries, right? I always look at who's the deeper team. I know fellow Celtics fans may not like this, but in 2008, the Herald had like all the players lined up for the Celtics and all the players lined up for the Lakers. I was like, we can't lose this series. No. We're so deep. Like Leon Poe's the 11th guy off our bench. We can't lose. PJ Brown's behind him. We can't lose, right? Well, in 2010, that changed. That reversed. And I know people say if Perk didn't hurt his knee, we win in Game 7. We were winning Game 7. Yeah. We ran out of gas because we weren't deep enough. We ran out of gas in the fourth quarter because we didn't have the depth. We didn't have those guys that you're talking about, Evan, on the bench, right? That like where the minutes going to come from. They're going to come when your team's exhausted in June, right? Yeah. And that spark plug, right? And your point is fair too. Like right now, where are these minutes going to come from? If we go out and get 2 more guys, where are they going to play when the roster's intact, right? But there's always those minutes in the playoffs that happen. And you have to be able to go to this well of depth. Like PJ Brown, Boston sports fans know he hit the biggest shot in that 7-game series against Cleveland in 2008, or we may not go to the finals, right? PJ Brown, right? It's like the minutes will come the later the season goes on, and the depth is going to be so necessary to win this thing, And I think we were probably 1 or 2, specific role players short last year of being able to win that series against Golden State. I think, like I said, I don't know if Sam, for whatever reason, he didn't get to play a lot. If he could have came in and got on the court enough time to take 4 threes and made 2 of them, that the difference between us winning and losing one of those games.
All right, I know
but this year, depth. We'll have the depth.
I know you've got another commitment on the way here. Otherwise, we would happily keep you forever and keep this thing going. But while this is primarily a Celtics podcast, I know that your fandom is not limited to the NBA or obviously to the C's. Like you said, we talk Pats all the time. Real quick, they've won 5 out of 6. They've climbed to 6th in the AFC. They're a game back of 2nd place, depending on how you feel, obviously, about what's an incredibly competitive division right now. And big turnaround Thanksgiving night in Minnesota as well. What do you think happens in that game? And what are we looking at the second half of this season? Is this a team that's going to be in the playoffs again?
Well, I wish the Vikings didn't lay an egg against the Cowboys Sunday. I'd feel a lot better about our chances to pull an upset. It's NFL is funny like that. A team loses.
The bounce back is real.
Yeah, it's just it's a thing. And my philosophy on Thursday games, it hasn't been accurate this year a lot. I'm such a handicapper for a guy who doesn't bet. Home teams on Thursday usually do better. They're usually terrible games, but the home team usually wins. Ugly. Because they're just a little more comfortable. It's a little less work for them to do what they got to do to be ready to play on a Thursday, typically, than the road team. That said, I don't know that this game is critical. I think the Patriots should beat the Raiders, although I hate playing our old coaches. Belichick's old assistant. The media makes such a thing out of it. Sorry, I know you guys with the media, but it's like, oh, John, another Patriots former beats Belichick. Everyone loves to say Belichick. Obnoxious. Well, Boston guys don't do it. Everyone else does it. I think we can win for sure 4 games out of the remaining games, right? So that's probably not going to be good enough to get in. I don't think 10-7 is going to get in this year. If we go in 5, that means probably beating Buffalo in New England would be 5 games. It may all come down to that game. Look, Buffalo looks a lot more beatable than they did, a month ago, right? They look very vulnerable. So although our offense really has to get going, I don't like to jump on the bandwagon of what the popular criticism is. I try to look at different angles of it and stuff, but man, we got to get the ball moving and start punching it in the end zone, or we're not going to really have a chance in the second half. But I think, if our offense plays good, we should win 4 of the remaining games. And if we win 5, I think we get in the playoffs.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say, I'll leave you with this. Pat's offense, I think in the red zone is either 31 or 32nd in the league. And the Vikings defense in the red zone is also either 31st, 32nd. So maybe there's something there. Maybe they can put it in the end zone. I don't know. I just Kirk Cousins in primetime makes me feel good about the Pats against the Vikings this week. That's all I'm saying.
There you go. That's what you listen.
With Belichick, there's always a chance. And if defense is intact, one thing people don't, we talk about the Patriots defense. The only time our defense has been bad this year is when Kyle Duggar was out. And they keep saying, we're losing to the scrambling quarterbacks. We lost to the scrambling quarterbacks, and Kyle Duggar didn't play.
Yeah.
So he might have been, I remember there was, and Devin McCourty's my guy. I'm not trying to slight him, but, there was a touchdown Lamar Jackson threw to Andrews that McCourty was covering. And McCourty typically is not defending that guy. It would have been Kyle, right? So, I think the scrambling plays that have killed us, Kyle wasn't there. It's like what he does, he's like a Swiss Army knife out there. He does so many things. Like he's the guy we need. So when we play the Bills again, when we play the Bills after the Vikings game, I'm going to be interested to see how he does, with Jared Allen, scrambling out of the pocket and stuff. I think he is the difference maker. Of course, Judon is next level, out of this world, amazing player this year. But Kyle is the the secret ingredient back there that I think makes this defense, work the way it's meant to.
See, Ev wanted a good screen grab to tweet out for the show that Donnie gave it to you. The cheering how much fun he had on the show is what you can throw out on social media. It's going to be perfect. All right.
I love Belichick, and I know people are down on Matt Patricia. I don't know if he's a good offensive coach, but he loves blue bloods.
So
that's the win. But who doesn't love blue bloods?
That's fair.
We won one of the AFC championships. I think it was before the Eagles Super Bowl, right before Coach Patricia left to coach Detroit, and Mr. Kraft was like, "Come on down to the field, for the trophy ceremony." And I bumped into Linda Holiday, who's Coach Belichick's girlfriend, and she goes, "Oh, come say hi to Bill." And I was like, "I don't want to bother him, I don't want to bother Coach." And she's like, "Come on." She was like, "Hey, this is Donnie Wahlberg, from Blue Bloods." And he goes, I don't really watch TV, man. It's like, this is great. But then around Matt Patricia standing there, and he goes, "Blue Bloods, I love Blue Bloods." So I'm like, come on, man.
Guest star. You could fit him into an episode somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
It was awesome. I was like, funny. Yeah, it was great. And Nink did too. Nink was like, "Hey, I love Blue Bloods." It was great. But Coach Patricia, I was like, "All right, you can go to Detroit now. I'm going to keep rooting for you from afar." And I wasn't mad when we let up 90 points in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. I was like, I don't care. Coach Patricia loves Blue Bloods. I mean, he's a great offensive coordinator.
You're going to tell me Patricia couldn't show up on the show as like Anthony's cousin one episode? It would perfect.
He's a perfect guy, man. He's a funny guy. And look, I know everyone's concerned about the offense and concerned about the play calling. I know at some point it's okay to question, Coach Belichick, and it's okay. I think he's just smarter than everyone else. And, it may not be going right now, but whenever I find myself questioning him, it's like Adam and I were like messaging all before the draft 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We're like, he's going to take this guy. He's going to take this guy. And it was like, Mac Jones fell into our lap. But this year, it's like we need a linebacker. We need a wide receiver. We need a cornerback because we lost J.C. Jackson. And he takes like a offensive lineman that people thought was going in the fifth round. Right. The cynic would say he's trying to show how smart he is. I would say he just marches to the beat of his own drum. He always has. He always will. And when people say, he didn't win anything without Brady, he beat us in the playoffs with the Browns, with who was it? Testaverde.
Right.
He beat Parcells, on a Patriots team that went to the Super Bowl within a year, right? He's
11 wins with Matt Castle.
Right.
And I love Brady. I'm not trying to drive a wedge between the two. I think they were the perfect tandem. But it's just, he's an easy guy for people to not like because he doesn't feed into anything. And I personally love that. I love that. And I love when the players are the same way. This rookie 4th round pick runs a punt back to win the game. And, his press conference after the game, everyone's like, "How did it feel?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm really focused on the next game." I mean, I don't know how other people feel about that. I just respect that so much, that a young player, that's his mentality. I'm not celebrating this touchdown. It was great. I'm focused on the next game. I love that. I love that about Belichick. I love that about, the players that have that mentality. It's just, that's what makes greatness. Guys that, the guys that celebrate a great moment too much may also be the guys who hang on a disappointment too much, right? You hang on to the disappointment, it'll get in your head, and it'll, in anyone in life, not just athletes, right? We do something dumb. It's like, oh man, you keep thinking about it. Then you trip going down the sidewalk because your mind is elsewhere thinking about the dumb thing you did, right? It's like players that can turn the page quickly to me, have a better chance for success. And I think Belichick gravitates towards those type of players who have that approach. It's not that he's making them think that way. I think he drafts players that think that way. I think he drafts players that can play multiple positions, do multiple things, and have a certain approach to things that, he might say, this guy is faster in the 40 and can do this a little better, but this guy is got the mentality that I just think, will work out better in the long run. And I love Belichick, man. He's the best.
Move over, Patriots Beat. We're doing it all today. It's been a lot of fun. Always is a lot of fun when Donnie hops on. Let's get you again for playoffs. Let's, I don't know what your schedule will be at that point or if you guys got another tour coming, but let's talk during the postseason.
Why wait? You really only asked me 5 questions. Evan's barely been able to say anything because I keep talking much.
Typical. I'm here for the good looks, Donnie. I'm not here for anything other than that.
He dresses the night. He brings up our Q rating in terms of wardrobe. That's what Evan does.
I'd be happy to do a part 2 before the playoffs, but I will promise you I will come back for the playoffs for sure.
Count on that. Yeah. Well, look, I know how to reach you. We'll bug you for sure. Evan Valenti, Donnie Wahlberg. I am at what's it?
Trade deadline. It's gonna be a lot of gossip going on. That's when I'll come back.
There we go.
I can't believe Jenny didn't just swoop in at one point to talk trash about the Bulls win.
She did enough trash talking last night. Mike Rotundi, who's like a legendary Boston season ticket holder, sent me the screen grab of the NBC Sports Boston broadcast of her going like this. He was booing the Celtics, and I turned. He literally sent it to me, and and then all my friends started saying, "Hey, your wife's cheering for the Bulls. What's going on?" It was pretty.
Hey, we Boston know the Bulls anyway. You can't quit your allegiance.
No, she's she cheers for us when she cheers for our guys. Trust me. But she was in Chicago last night. She had to represent for the hometown. But she's a Boston sports fan now.
This has been Celtics Beat. Thank you for watching, everyone. We'll do it again next week. Another special guest on the way, which should be a lot of fun. And have a happy Thanksgiving. Donnie, to you, to the family, and Evan as well, and everybody out there listening.
Thanks, guys.